What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show and to Mark the Shark, his channel as well. We are doing a dual stream. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is my buddy Mark. Mark, how are you doing tonight, my man?
Good. How's everybody doing? Hi.
I'm doing good, man. I hope everybody's doing good too. Um, you know, it's been a kind of a weird couple of days here. I saw a report, in the Nancy Guthrie disappearance or abduction. I sent it to you, and I was like, "Hey, man, this kind of looks familiar." And I wanted to talk to you about some of the breakthroughs. But before we do, how's your day been, man? You were live earlier, right?
Yeah, I was alive earlier, and I just woke up not too long ago. I went to go get some food, got me a shrimp burrito.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, so I like passed out. That's why I don't have the camera on because I passed out, and I'm just like kind of waking up from that food coma.
There you
But
go.
good. Yeah, good. How are you?
Good. I'm good, man. A shrimp burrito. I don't think I've ever had one of those. I think that's something I need to try. I need
Hmm.
to try this. It's pretty awesome, man. Um, you know, there's been a couple of things in the Nancy Guthrie case that I think are being spoken about now, and I wanted to kind of share that with you and our audience, and get your opinion on it, and just kind of have a discussion on what's being said and stuff like that. And so, everybody, please join us. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Here's the video I wanted to watch, and let's break it down, man.
Tonight, we're hearing from a former FBI profiler who says the blood tells the story in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie vanished nearly 3 months ago, but her disappearance remains a chilling mystery. Investigators have found few clues that we know of. Among them, these grainy images of a masked man on her porch the night she disappeared. And then, of course, there's the blood spatter on her doorstep, which DNA testing confirmed belonged to the 84-year-old grandmother. But while these clues may seem limited, my next guest says these images provide a treasure trove of information on Guthrie and what happened to her that night. Retired Special Agent Jim Clemente has drilled down on these pictures frame by frame. And to try and fill in the blanks on this baffling mystery, he joins me now to share what he found. Jim, great to see you. We should say you were an FBI profiler. Yes. It was your job on tough, cold cases to come in and reverse engineer, try and figure out who they should be looking for. Yes. Let's first take a look at the blood images. The first one is this image. It's a wide shot of the blood spatter on the doorstep.
So just before we get started, I kind of want to give everybody a little bit of a rundown of what I've said in the past. Initially when I first saw the blood spatter on the ground, I said that, this looks like a mist. This looks like somebody coughed. Given the spray, and the cluster being so compact, I believe that this person was close to the ground when this occurred. And, one of the reasons I thought that based on the cluster was I use the analogy of like bird shot. Mark, have you ever shot bird shot before by any chance?
No.
Okay, so what happens is you have a lot of pellets, right? Now, if you're close to your target, it's going to keep those pellets in a close cluster because it's real close. The further you're away, those pellets are going to spread apart. And so you're not going to have a really good grouping. Given how close this was, I always felt like that she was pretty close to the ground. I had Steve from True Crime Web come on, and we talked about the blood. And one of the things that he brought up is that we don't see a hand, like an outline of a hand. I'm assuming if she's that close to the ground, maybe her hand. It doesn't, given that mist, it doesn't appear that she was covering her mouth or her hand when she coughed or sneezed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would assume that her hand may be on the ground, if not restrained. But if she was restrained, that'd be one thing. That would explain why her hand's not on the ground. But why do you? What do you think? Do you see? Do you get what I'm saying? Like you would think you would see,
Right.
like if her hand was on the ground, an outline of the hand. I don't think I see that. Do you?
I don't see any of that or an outline of a hand, and that's a good point because now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, it could possibly be that two people were holding her from the left and the right, and as they were, you know, bringing her out, that could be it too, maybe.
Hmm.
But also, you were saying that, you know, she could have been restrained from the back or from the front, and then being held like that too, without that handprint on there.
Mhm.
So that's yeah, this whole like porch scene here, it's so puzzling to me. Like I cannot figure this out or even put it in a timeline. But this right here is so interesting because there's so much blood here, and then it just kind of ends from here.
Yeah. So, you know, you brought up an interesting point. You know, could two people, one person on each side?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. You know, that's possible. I think it was pretty close to the door, but it is possible. You know, I know Steve. He kind of recreated it, and he felt that that she was probably on her knees on the ground, and kind of not like almost in the fetal position, but you know, on your knees,
Mm.
perhaps restraint as well. Um, but that was like the direction as well. Because I mean, if she was being held up by two people,
Yeah, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. I'm just kind
oh,
of
for
thinking
sure, for
as
sure.
yeah, as you're saying that.
No. I'm not trying to.
Not
None
a
of it. I'm not a blood spatter expert, my man. So you could be 100% right on that.
Yeah,
Um,
and it was interesting too because you were like, "Hey, you know, you sent me that video of Brian Anton. And you're like, hey, does this sound familiar?" And
yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I've heard it from you."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was something that I picked up right away, and to
Mm,
me, it just said, "All right, well, obviously, she's not hooded. She doesn't have a gag because then she wouldn't be able to do this, in my opinion. Maybe perhaps the sneezing. You know, if it
mm,
was a sneeze and she had a gag, but I think we would see more directionality if it was a sneeze because there's usually like a weird, not a weird, but there's like a jolt. I guess if she was facing forward and sneezed straight down, but then again, that's usually coming out of the mouth. If she was gagged,
mm.
that wouldn't
What about
happen.
what do you think? Let me ask you this: do you think that this blood could be the pattern of it? Could it be from if she's in a wheelchair? Do you think this could be possible if she's in a wheelchair, or do you think the wheelchair would be in the way?
No, I don't think so.
Mm,
Mainly because of the position that she would have to be in to create this. Now, if she was in a wheelchair, then fell out, maybe,
mm,
you know, if they were rolling her out and she, you know, this is her, they're pulling her out of the house. So, you know, she may try, you know, one last gasp of trying to get away. And, you know, the door's open. And in that moment, she falls down and she hurts herself. Maybe that's why she's bleeding in this area and nowhere else. I think it was Brian Enton who said that, according to his sources, the interior of the home was immaculate. It was clean, uh,
mm-hmm,
except for that entryway as they're walking out. And so that's the only thing that I could think of is that maybe perhaps she fell over, you know,
mm.
and and then, you know, that could be an explanation. What do you think?
You know what? I thought about that first when this came out. When this story came out, that's what was my first initial thought was that she hit her head and she wandered off. That was my first initial thought.
Hmm.
Um, but then and then we saw the video of the porch guy, and I was like, whoa, that just took it into a completely different avenue. So could have she hit her head, or could the perpetrator have hit her? You know, she's trying to, you know, that she's coming out of her house, out of her comfort zone, and then she realizes what's going on, right? Because you're being woken up in the dead of sleep, and then all of a sudden you're outside
Mhm.
barefooted, and who knows? Maybe she might have screamed or whatnot. And that's another point too that I was thinking about this too is that she wasn't she if she coughed this blood up, there was no like tape over her mouth or her mouth wasn't covered. So that was another thing too that
Exactly.
threw me off. Yeah, was that if you're taking her out and it's so quiet out there. When I was out there, I mean, you could hear a pin drop, literally a pin drop out there. And so if she's not having that anything covering her mouth, she could have easily screamed. So I don't know what to make of that, but that did stick out to me as I was thinking about this.
So great point. And I thought about that a lot as well, man. That was one of the things. In fact, I asked Steve about this, and that was one of the things I kept asking him about this is do you see anything that would show like if somebody if somebody got smacked, right? You know,
Mhm.
let's just say she did scream. This is the exit entry point or the exit point that we can assume that she left from. What if he turned around, tried to silence her in a certain way, and because she tried to scream? Would there be, if it was like a strike to the head, would there be um you know, I guess like a flinging of blood, you know, from the
Mhm.
initial hit, you know, the boom, like a hit and then blood fling off? And I don't see that there, but I don't think we see everything. You know, there could be some stuff on the walls that we didn't see. I would be very disappointed if they left that there, which it didn't appear that they took anything. So
Right.
if it was probably left there. But I didn't see that. So I'm wondering if there's anything like that inside the house at the foot of the door. And you know, the other thing that could be is he may not have had to have struck her in the face. He may have, you know, struck her in like the stomach or something, and she's
Mhm.
coughing up blood and went to the ground. But I still think that she's probably restrained.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know,
that whole hand thing that you were saying, it does. I mean, you would be able to see that, right? Like the
that or
outline maybe.
she has to push herself up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so you would assume there would be a handprint in the blood.
Or smearing from the hand as she
E-
was falling down.
Exactly. And there's none of that. Now, there is this, you know, to the side here. Now, me and Steve had looked at it. He thinks that's possibly a partial shoe print. Now, you mentioned that that Nancy didn't have any shoes, and I remember
Mhm.
hearing that. And if that's true, if that is a shoe print, that's the abductor's shoe print.
100%. If that is a shoe print, yeah.
Yeah. Unless, wait, you know what? No, I
Unless it's the
strongly,
FedEx, unless it's the UPS driver or the
exactly. Yeah. That's what I
Oh,
was about
man.
to say. Unless it was somebody who arrived after the fact to go check on her and then stepped on it, didn't see it, stepped on it, and then looked down. I guess that's a possibility. Maybe that's why they didn't collect it.
Mm.
You know, somebody stepped in it. You know, is that? I wonder if Steve, if you're in here, he told me he was going to be in the live chat, but
Oh, right on.
you know, I would assume you would still collect it even if somebody stepped in it, but um
Right, because isn't that like you would like say I stepped on it or and I'm delivering something, but then you can show my routes, then I could get eliminated. And if there's another uh partial footprint or DNA or anything, then I would imagine they would have taken that and then separated that um either DNA or footprint or whatnot. And the fact that they didn't take the tile, they didn't take the mat, they didn't take the gate, as you were saying.
yeah.
And I wanted to ask you this is that if uh, do you think that the way that it was handled, do you think that if there is an arrest later, that you think the case will be okay, even if there are mistakes being done early on, like leaving the crime scene open for people to walk through it?
I think that depending on what they have, some stuff could be an issue. So let's assume that because I think money also helps, right? And who
Yeah.
you are makes a big difference, right? And so I'm going to assume that the abductor is probably not somebody who's going to be, you know, if arrested, is going to get a. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they are. You know, GoFundMe and a bunch of other stuff, and be able to afford like a high powered defense and stuff like that. You know, if they get something like that, then you know, if you have a high powered lawyer and you have possible questions about contamination and things of that nature. If that evidence was utilized to find something and they can get that thrown out of court, then that becomes a big problem. But if they have some strong evidence, and I've gone back and forth with this in my mind because of the lack of information that they have put out there. It's usually one or two reasons why. Either one, they have a lot and they don't need anything else,
Mm-hmm.
which it doesn't really seem like that's to be the case here because of how long this has been, and and it doesn't seem like they have any answers. They're downsizing, etc. Or they don't have very much and they're trying to keep everything real close to the vest with whatever little that they do have in case somebody does come forward, that you don't have any false, confessions. The John Bonet case was a very big case, and there was several people who, confessed in that case that didn't commit that crime. And so when you have high profile crimes like this, that tends to happen from time to time. You'll get people that come in here and do that. And so you want to have some things that you can ask and get information out of that you can ensure that the person you're talking to is correct. Now, there's also another avenue that they could have something that is fairly strong, but it's a big piece of the puzzle, but you still need quite a few more pieces. And what I mean by that is, like in the Brian Koberger case, they had his DNA on a knife sheath. That was a piece of evidence that was brought in by the killer. They knew that the killer touched that item based on the amount of cells and everything else that was on there. And so they had something there that was pretty strong. They still put out information out there looking for a vehicle, etc. But they had something pretty strong. And what ended up happening in that case, it was the information that was found after the fact. The fact that he turned his phone off, the fact of what he was searching, his Google searches, his locations by the house, et cetera, et cetera. None of that could be found until they located the person. And so I'm assuming here that this person there's no such thing as the perfect crime. They probably made several mistakes. And if they have something fairly strong, like possibly DNA, that they're going and getting the IgG stuff done on, once they find out that person's name, there's going to be some things that is going to make it difficult for them to account for. Like, for instance, what they were doing that night. They're probably going to have, they had Nancy somewhere. They had to do something with her. That has to, account somehow in their schedule, in their pattern. That's not something normal. So once they get their phone records, once they get all these other things, you're going to see that. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so all that is going to turn into evidence against the person. And then once you figure out who they are, what kind of vehicle they're driving, where the locations, then you can start to pull in cameras that you've done preservation orders and see if you can find that vehicle in those places. And then that's when you start to really build and build and build and build. And so I don't think that this case will end up being a situation where it cannot overcome, some of the things. I think what they've done at this point is probably prolonged catching the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that can have its own issues on its own, because you can lose some things the longer this takes, footage from places you didn't get a preservation order. Let's just say that this guy came from a couple of towns over, like Brian Koberger did, and you didn't get a preservation order. So now you're missing the footage of him leaving town at a specific time that he should have been. That would have been nice to have had you had his name earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are the things. I don't think it'll be unprosecutable. I think there's going to be some hurdles, to overcome when it comes to admitting evidence. But if they can get the evidence admitted, I think that there's going to be quite a bit of evidence against this person. And now that the FBI seems to kind of be taking over it, I feel pretty confident that they'll be able to get a conviction in this case.
Oh, good.
But this guy gets some traction with some folks and the GoFundMes and the the big reports and stuff start coming out, he's a patsy or he's this or he's that,
Mhm.
that starts to go array, which I'll do the prediction now. I can almost guarantee you is going to happen. We're going to see a large amount of people that are going to say that this guy didn't do it for one reason or another.
Oh,
And,
right.
and, you know, that's going to be the other thing, to overcome.
Mm. Like Idaho, huh? Do you think? Maybe.
Bigger, man. I think this could be bigger. I think this case, as far as like view, not necessarily views, but like traction, with Koberger, he got a lot of people on his side, but I don't think he got as many as, like, for instance, you know what, maybe as big as Koberger. I think probably so. I was gonna say maybe like Luigi Mangione, but no, I don't think so, because that was more political and there was a lot of other stuff involved in that.
Mhm.
And so that brought in a lot more people. Yeah, I would say probably as big as like the pro Koberger movement. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that with whoever gets arrested.
I was gonna ask you too. What do you I was gonna ask you too. What do you think when it comes to like the Pima County sheriffs? They came out with a search warrant for Luke Daly. I think
Yeah.
that's his name. And then for I'm sorry, for Luke it was a federal warrant, and then for Carlos was a Pima County search warrant. I mean, do you think there's still something there with Luke, because it is a federal search warrant, and I mean it's from the FBI. It's not like they just picked this guy out of a hat. Do you think there's something more there with Luke, or do you think maybe that's a dead end?
If they have DNA of the suspect, it's a dead end.
Oh wow, okay.
If they have DNA of the suspect, it's a dead end. Because all they'd have to do is just get his DNA, and they've already arrested him. I think they've already just swabbed him.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, law enforcement, also the FBI, got several search warrants and things for Ron Logan in the Delphi case, and ended up being, and I understand why. I get completely why they would, but ended up not being the case. You know, so uh, I think that they had some pretty solid information
Mhm.
that they were going off of, but sometimes things look good, but looking good and being good are two different things sometimes.
Mm,
You get what I'm
but
saying?
yeah.
And it's not like you need like proof beyond reasonable doubt to go and search, somebody. You just need enough of a question or enough suspicion to go and do so. And you got to understand also that at the time, I think there was a possibility that Ms. Guthrie could have still been alive. So you're working as fast as possible. So there's probably going to be some things that, like, if they would have looked at it today, like let's
Mhm.
just say Mr. Daly came up today and they had the same information, I guarantee you they're not moving as fast.
Oh wow. Let me
Yep.
use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
All righty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this, and then, well, you know what? I think I want to say thank you to April D4 for becoming a member on Mark's channel. If you guys would consider becoming a member on either channels, hit the join button. For the Drunk Turkey Show, when you do so, you become eligible, or you have an opening to become part of the Discord, and so become part of the conversation, etc. We have adjusted the memberships, and so I think the lowest level is like 99 cents for us. So appreciate it if you would do it. Hit the like button if you can, and you want to still support the channel. It's free. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. All right, I'm going to continue to play this. This is something that me and Mark have kind of talked about already. So I'll kind of catch him up when he gets back on.
What does that tell you when you look at it?
Well, it tells a story of a snapshot of time. There's low velocity blood spatter, there's medium velocity blood spatter, and then there's on the right-hand side, you see a blood smear. That means somebody impacted that blood after it hit the floor.
Stepped on it.
Stepped on it, rubbed an arm or a hand through it, something like that.
What are the blood?
So the blood smear, there's some rigid edges to it. And that's the part that when Steve he did his Steve from True Crime Web, he's a CSI investigator. And actually I was talking with oh, okay, see that you're back, Mark. I was talking with uh Steve earlier. He's going to be on the channel, and we're going to try to do get him on the channel along with Mark, and so that way we can talk to a retired CSI. But yeah, comes in saying basically a high velocity, medium velocity, and that he believes this is a cough. So let's continue. Do you have any comments on this, Mark?
No, I just got back.
All right, cool. So let's continue this, and then we'll break it down a little more.
Blood drops tell you?
Well, the bigger droplets tell us that because there's no directionality, that they were dropped almost directly from above. But the smaller droplets tell a different story.
Which is what?
Well, they're actually medium velocity blood droplets, which means that they were coughed out. They were aspirated and then coughed out. And I know that because some of these blood droplets, you can see they're sort of rings rather than the whole solid droplet. And that meant that they hit the ground as a bubble. They had air in them. And that can only happen when somebody coughs or sneezes out blood.
So what does all that tell you? We know this blood is Nancy's. What does that, studying that blood, what does that tell you about what was happening to her at that moment?
It tells me that her face was within a foot, probably several inches above the ground, almost directly above that first upper left blood stain. And it tells me that this is probably where she made her last stand, where she fought her abductor.
She was 84 and could barely walk.
I understand, but this is probably where she gave them the initiative to hit her in the face. She started bleeding. It went down her throat. She coughed it up as she went down to the ground here. This tells me that was most likely only one offender, because two offenders would have had control of her completely, and she would never have made her way down to the ground so close to be able to make that blood spatter, that medium velocity blood spatter.
So he brings up an interesting point about being a one-person offender, that two people would have most likely been able to have controlled her, especially given her mobility constraints or mobility restriction, and the possibility of she also being restrained here. I talked about the back door being propped open, and I mentioned that as being a sign to me also of a single offender, that one, you really don't need to have something open, prop open the door if you have somebody else there to help you. And two, for this situation here as well, what he just mentioned, it just, if you had more people, the likelihood of one person talking to somebody, saying something, plus you also have to have, initially you have one person that has to be able to get away from their family, not be suspicious, have a place to take her, not be noticeable, like the activity noticeable from coworkers, etc. Because they did something with Nancy. They had an intention of doing something with her. They would have taken her if this was the initial plan, was to abduct her. What are your thoughts on this, on what he thinks about it being a single person job, Mark?
It would make sense if it is a single person, because we haven't heard anything from anybody else that would come forward for that reward money, that $1.1 million or whatever it was. So it would make sense that if it is a single person, then that one person's able to keep that secret, unless he's, at the bar and telling everybody, what he did. But I think that does make sense with that single person perpetrator. Nobody else has come forward. Nobody that we know of. I mean, we haven't heard anything.
And if there was a second person, like, one, there was cameras around the house, right? Now, I know that law enforcement have said that they haven't retrieved any footage from those cameras. That could be a lie, right? That can be a lie. Just like they said that the DNA they had, they were alluding it to being, touch DNA. Find out later it's hair. Big difference. And so here, if they had more than one person, I know they set out the video of just the one guy, but where is that second person involved? How do you think a second person would be involved? Would they be a person, on scene, or would they be a person who's calling the shots per se?
That could be it too. If it is more than one person, I could see a driver stopping by, dropping this guy off. That's why he was there for 41 minutes, maybe, right? This is just a thought. And, for that other guy to come back to pick him up, I mean, that could be it too, a getaway driver. And he could have done this by himself and then dragged her outside, had that getaway car, and then boom, let's go. I mean, that could have been one scenario. But then again, you got a chance of being more exposed going around that neighborhood and, going either in circles or in, coming back to the
Well, I
scene.
mean, if it's two people, that would basically throw out. It would kind of, in my opinion, funnel out the possibilities of the motive as it being, financial means. I would anticipate her getting into the vehicle bleeding is probably not what the driver had in mind. And so, from the driver's perspective, if there was a second person and there was a driver, it's already started pretty bad. I would assume there would be a lot more mistakes made because you're in the heat of the moment. Now there's somebody bleeding inside your vehicle, possibly. Maybe it's somebody else's vehicle. Maybe it's the person that's inside there. Maybe it's a rental vehicle that's in your name. I don't know. But now you have something that is happening that didn't go to plan. And then she passes away, possibly. I'm assuming she did, which was probably also not to plan. That's a pretty severe consequence of what they've done with some pretty severe consequences. I don't know, man. I just feel like a lot more mistakes would have been made in that scenario from somebody who wasn't expecting any of that.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? If that's not what the driver was expecting. And see, that just, that would give the driver an out, right? To say, look, this wasn't part of the plan, and then to come forward. But then again, I don't know. It's just, it feels like there's like one more missing piece of the puzzle that if we knew, it just would tie it all together. And I think that's what law enforcement has, is that
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. I mean, they're acting like they have something, but they're also acting like they don't have anything. It's
Right.
It's one of those moments where you're like, I don't know if you're doing something right or if you're doing something wrong. But so many questions. But I got some more stuff. We'll finish watching this, and then
Okay.
I want to get your opinion on some other things, and then we'll pull up some of your videos that we have. All right, let's pull this up.
How could one person do this? She was 84. She could barely walk. She wasn't tiny. Carrying another human being, no matter what size they are.
I don't believe he was carrying her until after this point. At this point, she was ambulatory, and I believe she was punched. She was injured. She went down to her knees, and her face was very close to the ground when she coughed up this blood. And after that, he picked her up and carried her away. Getting her to that point, he had a gun, a very visible gun, when he was on his way in. He used that gun to control her, but at this point, she fought back.
All right, so you're using your FBI profiler skills to really study everything you have, and which isn't much we have in the public sphere. But what using your skills as a profiler is the story to you on who this person is who took her?
Well, if two of the ransom notes were real, then part of the motivation was money. But I believe that there may have been a second motivation, and that is probably to hurt Savannah Guthrie.
Now, this is exactly what I've been saying when I've been saying that this is a fantasy driven, where it could be revenge. It could be a bunch of different things. I even had utilized a analogy of President Reagan being the attempted assassination of President Reagan was done by a man who was trying to gain the affection of Jodie Foster, an actress, something that Jodie Foster didn't really have any idea this was going on, or that this would have taken, like, she made a political stand that this would have taken her heart or anything like that. It was just a delusional person, and I feel like that's a good possibility here. Now he said if it's for ransom, then it's financially motive, but to me, I don't think it's financially motivated. I'm not necessarily saying that the ransoms aren't real. I think they could be from the person that committed this crime, but I don't think that their intention was to really gain money. They didn't really try very hard. What do you think there, Mark?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because if with the fantasy angle that you had, I mean that does make a good point. And yeah, there has been tons of cases throughout history where one person carries out multiple uh uh crimes and deaths, and they're doing it all by themselves. I mean, there's been tons of that.
Mhm.
So to rule that out, it's not, I don't think it's like uh like a far fetched idea that only one person could be doing this.
Well, Mark, what
Um,
about this?
mhm,
If it is fantasy driven or if it is
mhm.
revenge motivated, what are the likelihood that that's a two-person job? That doesn't sound like a two-person job if it's fantasy or revenge motivated. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that goes to that point again. That's another point to that. That it would be for the single person to go out there, and this is the closest he could get to Savannah Guthrie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think anybody wants to like share that with another person.
Mm-hmm.
You get what
That's
I'm
good.
saying?
Yeah, just for
So
himself. Yeah.
yeah, that's a selfish thing. That's a selfish motivation. That's a selfish move. That doesn't scream like, assistance. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think he also doesn't buy the ransom aspect of it. Now he might know something a little bit more and think that, he might be keeping that out there. But to me, if this was really truly financially motivated, there's a couple of things that would have happened. One, Savannah's family would have been contacted about Nancy's disappearance. They would have found out about Nancy's disappearance through the abductors, whether that be a ransom note left at the house,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be a phone call to their home. It would not be because she went missing, nobody could find her, and then 3 days later they finally contact. And then not only do they not contact the family, they contact the media. And so for them to contact the media, that tells me that their intention was to create a spectacle because that's what it was. Do you think that if they contacted the Guthrie family directly, and do you think we, the public, would have known about it?
Probably not, right? Because a lot of the ransom, they tell you don't call the police, or
Well, not,
yeah, or what were you
not
saying?
only that, but like, do you think that law enforcement would have let that information out? Do you think
Oh, I see. Probably do not.
no, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
no way that we would have known. So whoever did that wanted it to be known.
Mm,
You get what I'm saying? And so
right.
if they wanted it to be known, why? Maybe perhaps um people were looking in a certain direction already. Maybe perhaps he felt like he needed to take the credit that he deserved, etc. And he wanted people to stop thinking it was one thing or another and what it was. Because at that time we didn't have the video of the guy yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
And
mean?
you were
So
saying that too. Yeah, you were saying that too, right? Like with BTK, how he was sending letters to the media.
exactly. Yeah. And some folks will say, well, um, what made him stop is because, Savannah Guthrie and her family came out and spoke and said, hey, we want proof of life. You know, if that was really the guy,
Mm-hmm.
his affection was Savannah Guthrie,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's talking to you. Do you really think they would stop?
Yeah, probably not.
You know,
Yeah, and that's scary too, right? Like it's like he's playing that game to Savannah. Like it does creep me out because that Rex Huberman, he did the same thing, right? He would contact the families
Rex
and he would
Huberman would
taunt them.
torment him.
Mm-hmm. Would torment them. And it kind of seems like that too, right? To torment the
Mhm.
family, Savannah. And now she's actually talking because a lot of people were saying like it sounds like she's talking to somebody directly.
Yeah.
And to imagine that he's behind the computer screen or behind the TV or the phone and he's seen that, I mean, that just gives me goosebumps.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, that's the thing that bothers me about that. I just wonder if what it is that this person said in the beginning, if it really was just the floodlights and something to do with her watch, that her watch
Mhm,
was at the foot of her bed or something of that nature. That's
mhm.
where she plugged it in. Um, I don't really, I'm not too sold on that not being something that somebody can find on the interwebs. I mean, the internet sleuths, you cannot underestimate them. they'll find
Right.
they'll find everything.
Mhm,
And I wouldn't be this guy was really good at just searching the web. They had 3 days to go and look for throughout all of this video of Savannah and Nancy. I mean, a lot of people were pulling it up. It was one of the most searched things at the time. I wonder how much stuff would have been circulating from old videos, etc. I wonder how much that somebody could have come up with in that short period of time that could have made somebody really think that they were the person.
mm.
You get what I'm
Right,
saying?
right, yeah.
Unless it's something like super specific, like I knocked over this picture, you know, that would be super specific. I'd be like, all right, there's a knocked over picture that happened. That's inside the house. Nobody's been inside the house. You can't see that from outside.
Yeah,
Um,
you have to have something like that you were there, that only you, the family, would know, right? Like that, like something
yeah.
was knocked over. There was a case where the guy had killed this woman, and he had folded her clothes and put the cross on top. I mean, like that. If we heard something like that and police knew, um, then yeah, that's something to take serious. But at the foot of the bed, like you were saying, yeah, maybe, but something very specific. I mean, you can almost feel it, right? Folding the clothes and putting her cross on top of that on that case.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
hmm
that's what you're looking for. You're looking for
exactly.
that kind of information. Which makes me wonder about, this video we have the profiler with the blood, but the video of the suspect in the middle, but he goes and he's like adjusting the plants. When I was talking to Steve, he asked me, do you think that could have been like a message? And I was like, maybe. I thought about it. I was like, maybe he's trying to like, make it so that he's trying to cover something,
Hmm.
but I think you can probably get something better than plants to do that.
As a
Yeah,
message or as
as
what?
as to cover the camera.
Oh, gotcha. Yes. Yeah.
I think you can get something better, and I don't think that's what he was doing. And I wondered about that. I wonder if that's what he was doing. And here in a minute, we'll bring up the video and the footage, and I want to get your opinion on a few things that have
Be-
been bothering me.
Okay. Before we go, what do you know what type of glove that was? I know Steve had mentioned that too. The glove, like it's a heavy duty glove. Do you remember what
I,
kind of glove that was?
I don't, but it's a glove that like I think some mechanics will wear and some like HVAC guys
Hmm.
will wear. And what it is, and I just happen to be playing with a nitrate glove underneath
Look
the
at
desk.
that.
Is it's a regular nitrate glove, but it has a second glove like woven into it.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and it is super, super durable. I mean, he had a hard time ripping it, on the channel. And so yeah, it was pretty intense. Um, but yeah, let's finish this and what he has to
Okay.
say, and then I'll pull up some of the pictures and videos, and then I want to see, some videos to kind of maybe answer some questions that I've had in my mind.
By taking her mother, by depriving her of that. And that could have been based on some interaction that this offender had with the mother or with Savannah in the past. It could have been weeks or months or years ago. It could also have been just a delusion in his own mind. And he could have built up an anger and a resentment against her. And as a result, he felt justified in taking the mother to hurt her.
So I'm hearing you say he, you think it was a man, you think it was a
Yes.
man who was acting alone, and you think it was a man who had some sort of obsession with Savannah.
I think that's the
Maybe
highest
watched her on
probability.
TV every morning and,
Yeah.
became obsessed somehow.
And he may have had some delusion going on in his brain and that nobody else knew about, or that he maybe spoke to some people about. And that's how we might be able to catch him, because at some point, somebody out there will recognize that this guy always talked about her, or said he was going to come into some money, or right as this happened, as the images were released, he left town because he had an emergency.
Super quick.
Yeah, excellent point, because that's what Brian Koberger did, right? When the images of the Elantra came out, he left town. That's when he split, got into an argument, and left town. And that's what I'd said not too long ago. If they had, I think it was on your show, on the show last time, I said if they had images of his vehicle, if they were to put it out there, Brian Koberger had a reaction to it, and it wasn't the vehicle that he had. If they just had like a make, model, and a year and a stock footage, what kind of reaction are you getting from somebody getting nervous at that point? Right now, that person's probably getting pretty comfortable. And maybe they got nervous about the hair thing. Maybe that information might make them a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I would think they're pretty comfortable. Why not throw out something that would make somebody question, why is this person acting funny? Maybe they had a suspicion before, you know what I mean? But they just kind of waved it off as something else. And then new information comes out and they act kind of even more funny. And then you're like, you know what? I got to report something. You get what I'm saying? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, we've seen that with like you were saying, with the Koberger case. And if I thought too, if this guy's level of calmness doing this high level crime, I mean, wouldn't he stick out to the public, right? Isn't that something that this guy would be sticking out? And now with that information that if it does come out, I mean, yeah, this guy would definitely be on somebody's radar. I mean, I have a feeling that somebody knows this person. I have a feeling that this guy had said something, or somebody has some connection with this guy, and they're just afraid to come forward because of what he did. But I do believe somebody has recognized this guy. I do believe that.
I think there's a possibility. And, if you did recognize him, please come forward. Please speak. If you help, and you're worried about things, you know where to go, you'd be kind of worried. I mean, I'm sure you'll get some help. And then there's a financial aspect that'll help you and your family as well. So, please come forward. All right.
And so do you think maybe they do have a vehicle?
I think it's possible. I think if they do, I think they're sitting on something that they think is pretty heavy, pretty strong, and they're just waiting for the results of it to come back, and that's going to point in one direction. And I think they're assuming that they're going to get a lot of info, once they find out who this person is. That's my hope. That's my half glass full, approach to this, is that they have something super concrete. And if they have hair and it's mixed in, like, with Nancy's blood or something of that nature, that's pretty compelling. Now, maybe perhaps they're doing what Idaho did. Everybody looks at what Nanos did or Nanos did and say, oh man, he sent it to, Florida. And then from Florida, it's getting sent to the FBI. Idaho did the same thing. They sent it to Othram. And then from Othram, it went to the FBI. And so that might just be the procedure in which they have to do things for it to fly in court, because in certain bylaws, and Brian Koberger's defense team tried to bring this up, was that their policy, which again, policy isn't law, right? That's just their policy. The FBI policy was that they weren't supposed to do any like help with IGG unless there was no suspects, no avenues, no nothing. Like they have exhausted all avenues of law enforcement, investigative tools, and they now need the FBI's help. And the reason that they have this policy is because there's only one FBI lab, and there's several thousands of law enforcement agencies across the United States. And so they want to make sure that they go through all their avenues and that the FBI is the last resort to help them out, right? And even at that, there's certain cases for whatever reason or another that get in before. I'm just a messenger. Don't kill me on what cases. You know what I'm saying? And so because of that, that's why they have their policies. And so that's not something that, a defense attorney can go in there and say, you broke your own policy. But, that's just a policy for logistics. It's not a policy for anything that's going to affect anything court wise. But,
yeah, that always worries me. Like, if they catch the guy, if this is like a defense's dream case because of all the mistakes that were done.
I mean, from the outside looking in, possibly. I mean, but I thought that was the same thing at, Brian Koberger's when I saw the probable cause affidavit. When I saw the PCA, I was like, man, they don't really have much. And at the time, they really didn't. Most of their evidence came after the arrest. And right now, we don't know much. So, of course, to a defense attorney today, it's gonna look amazing because we don't know what they have, and there's only so much. And if you're accounting what we know as all that they have, then yeah, they don't got much. But I highly doubt that to be the case.
That's good. That's like reassuring that you're saying that. That's good. I sent you this last time you were talking about the jammers.
Mm-hmm.
A viewer sent me this, and I'm sharing my screen of a jammer. Let me play it.
All right. Oh, wait, that didn't work.
It looks like the antenna that the perp had.
That does. I think I've seen this. What it's doing is it's freezing the image, ain't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crazy. I'm interested in what the shrubs over the camera could symbolize. Quick AI search suggested biblical narratives as one. It also, is it someone from the church? Do we know what type of shrubs they are? Oh, that's an interesting point. Thank you, Miss Dog.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
For your $9.99. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, that is a good point. I've never heard of that. That's yeah. Yeah, so somebody sent me that. That's pretty wild.
And so that brings me to, and I'm glad you brought that up about the jammer, because so the reason why I think that there's a potential of a jammer is that, the law enforcement, and I'm a guy that's very much, especially early on investigations, when it comes to what law enforcement is doing, yes, take what they say, but take it with a grain of salt. It's much more, you'll be much more accurate if you watch what they do, not necessarily what they listen to what they say, because their movements, they can't hide that. They can't fake that. What they say, they can go out there and say whatever the heck they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this case here, what they did was they went out and they were asking people in the area about if they had any interference with their camera system. Now, what I think personally, what they were doing was, I think they were trying to map out a way that this guy would have taken out. So let's just say that the reason why they don't have footage of his vehicle is because he had a high powered jammer that was affecting people's cameras, right? Let's just say that was the case. And when he drove by, it was affecting their Wi-Fi, thus affecting the camera feed, and you couldn't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
You may not be able to see his vehicle, but if you can pinpoint which cameras went down, you can now draw a path of how this guy got out. Now, he's eventually going to come out across somewhere where it's not a camera that is tied to a Wi-Fi network. Maybe a camera that is tied to, a street camera, something like that a Wi-Fi jammer is not going to affect. That's what they probably could be looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah, wired. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing. And if they're going around looking for that tells me that he may have had a jammer. That's probably what that thing is sticking out of his shirt. I mean, out of his sweater. And then that leads to the question of why is he walking up to the camera without it on? And it doesn't appear that he's walking up to it, with the impression that he thinks it's on,
Mm-hmm.
I think he wanted to be seen, which goes back to tormenting the family, potentially having a motivation of it being out there. And, I goes back to the whole fantasy thing. And if it's a fantasy, I struggle with it being um, more than one person.
Mm.
But let's pull this up. So I wanted to bring this up here. Now, I think this is the same night. And I wanted to talk to you about this under that impression
Mm-hmm.
that this is the same night that the crime occurred. One of the thing is he doesn't have the backpack. He doesn't have this. I strongly suspect that this here, when he walks up and manipulates the camera, that's his first approach to the house. So this is him coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was talking to Steve about this, and he was like, what if this is him? What if he's already been in the house? And then I was like, well, then that kind of changes some things, because that means he wasn't there for 41 minutes. That means he was there for a lot longer. That just means that he came back to shut down the camera, and it took him 41 minutes to get her out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
But he was already in there. Now, I strongly suspect, and it kind of appears that he's coming from this side of the house.
Yeah,
Now,
from Nancy's bedroom.
Right. I wondered why. Now, what are you thinking?
I wanted to ask you a quick question in regards to this picture right here, now that he brought it up. How come we don't see his eyes on this or his mouth?
I think it's just pixelated in the distance. And there's also a good possibility. Remember that they had to like scrape. They use the term scraping, like paint off of paint.
Oh, okay.
It could have distorted some of the image based off of that.
I mean, this one looks even creepier.
It does. But he doesn't have the backpack and he doesn't have the gun.
No backpack, no gun. Yeah.
And I think he's coming from that side of the house, from the right side of the image.
Mm-hmm.
Now that would be Nancy's bedroom. I was wondering, like, man, why would he be coming from that area?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I thought maybe he secured her in the room, got out, jumped the fence, figured out, all right, I'm not going to be able to take her out of the back. I'm going to have to take her out of the front. And, jumping over the fence, he took the backpack off. He took the gun off because of jumping over the fence, came around to take off the camera, because now he's going to have to park in the front.
Mm-hmm.
His plan was to park in the back on the side. Let me pull this up so that way, everybody understands. So this door was left open and it was propped open, the back door open. Now, most burglars, most people that make entry into a house, even Brian Koberger, they made entry. Check my emails. I'll be able to check them here in a minute. The entry point and the exit point are usually the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is Nancy's patio, and I'm going to pull up we're going to pull up your video here in a minute. But I think that at this point he figured out, all right, I'm not going to be able to take her out the back. Maybe perhaps he has the door secured inside somehow. And he's like, I need to go and remove the doorbell camera, and jumps the fence. He may even have her, tied up too at this point. Jumps the fence, removes the camera, and then goes and gets the car and parks it up front. Yeah, that's one of the probably one of the few things, because at the end of the day, if this is the same night, this is after he's went up there after he's put the flowers up there. So that would also tell me his intention wasn't to remove the camera. Because why didn't he do it initially when he was there?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the back doors propped open, blood coming out of the front means a change of plans. We also have him not taking the camera initially and then coming back for it at some other point, which also is an indication of a change of plans.
Oh, I see.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I'm just so freaked out from this picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, because didn't you align like the picture with the other picture, and it like matched up perfectly? The flower, the brush, everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, look at that.
And then you also have certain points of light. These are all the same, including this one. And then you have some sort of, this is what we had overlined. Everything was the same. And this was actually what Steve did. And this is the some of the blood spatter work that he had done. And when he was pointing out the ridges, which, that pattern being on both sides like that is not typically consistent with like a smear. That's more, that type of pattern, even right here, is more consistent with like a pattern, like a shoe print. And so this is kind of the stuff that we had been working on. Let's see. That's not it. That's it right here.
Yeah, look at that. That's wild. How perfectly lines up.
Yeah, all the lines, everything is just perfect.
Yeah, look at that. Yep. Wow.
And so like,
and if you would imagine if it's from the 11th to that theory to what is it, the 31st or 30th, then you would see some changes, I would imagine, right?
I would too. I would imagine that, the appendages from the plants would have moved, because it's the positioning of the sun. Days are getting longer. The further we get away from the, I forgot what the day is called in December, the shortest day of the year. And so that day passes. So as that passes, days are getting longer. The sun position is also kind of changing. And so, if you ever do like a time lapse on you'll see, like, especially if something is still, you'll see like the pattern, like a certain pattern of the shadows, and that's kind of the rotation of the sun in the sky. And plants and things will move and adjust to those things. So 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is that enough time for it to have moved? I would think so, to be honest with you. I would have thought that something would have moved slightly.
Right, slightly.
You get what I'm saying? The winter
Yeah.
solstice. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. And so it's just some sort of movement. I don't think all of them would have been the same. I also don't think that there's a good chance that somebody hits something, somebody steps on something.
And there's strong winds out there too.
That also has an effect. That has an effect. And so all those things kind of lead me to believe it's most likely the same night, if not maybe a night or two. I'm still like very much positive. Because the other thing too is if it is a different night, then this guy got in this get up multiple times, right? He got in this get up multiple times and then goes there, and we don't know all the information that's left, but I would assume he's taking in a lot of DNA and stuff. And he would have had to have gone to his house and back. If he has any animals, if he has any family members, those are things that can also be tracked in on this person. So like you mentioned Rex Humerman and the Long Island serial killer. Did you know that his wife's hair was underneath some of the duct tape?
Right. Yeah. So they don't even need his hair.
Right. I mean, not necessarily that, but it just means that you can prove that he tracked something from his home to that area. And in that scenario, and they were able to prove that his wife wasn't involved in it because he was committing these crimes while his wife was out of town.
Vacationing, yeah.
And so he was just taking the bodies back to their home and doing things in the attic. I mean, in the basement, and taking the victims to his home or putting them in his vehicle and things of that nature. They got in contact with a bunch of DNA that are closely related to him. So let's just say that this guy has an animal, or this guy has a sister and mother, a wife, anything like that, somebody has, a brother who has a lot of hair, whatever. If they can, if he comes in contact with his family members' hair and their hair is on the scene, well, that's going to get him in the direction of the family, right? And then you're going to look at the family, you're going to look at the person, and then, all right, if that person gets clear that they're not involved, who are they coming around in contact with that could have had access to their DNA? And so it just becomes a deduction at that point.
Yeah, that's very promising too. That right there.
It is. I mean, there's just so much that can be done. But to me, if this is the same night, and I'm going to go off the preference under the pretense that it is, it's not. It is after this happens. So he did not take the doorbell camera with him initially. And so the question is why? I mean, if he's putting those, if all this with the plants right here is to, cover his tracks or whatever the case may be, why not take the camera with you then? Or break the camera? You know what I'm saying? What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, that could be it, right? Because there's no timestamps, right, for the for those pictures.
We don't know what the time is, but law enforcement saying that they don't have a timestamp or all this other stuff. I think they know what time it was.
That's gonna be interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think they know what time it was. I think there's going to be a recording. So, it shouldn't be very difficult because you're going to have activation and motion and a length of time, right? And so all you got to do is match up the length of time that the recording occurred with how much time you have on here. And so let's say, for instance, you have a couple of times that this person walks up in front, and you have a bunch of let's just say you have a bunch of times, right, of activation. But you have this footage that's 3 minutes and 10 seconds long, and then when you look at your recorded notes, it says that 1:45 that it recorded for 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Well, you can kind of pair the two. All right, that happened at 1:45, based on how long this footage is, based on what's recorded at that time. And so that's how you're going to be able to pair those up. I highly doubt we're going to see like multiple recordings for the exact same amount of time. I don't think there's going to be like 3 or 4 recordings throughout the night that are 43 seconds exactly. If that ends up being the case, then you have 3 options of what time it happened. You know what I mean? But I doubt it. I think you're going to have a specific amount of time that they have recovered for how long this person was in front of the camera. And then I think you're going to have a recording, like just how they have data that there was movement and there was a recording of it, but they don't have the footage of it. So I think they'll have like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like a list of the times that things went down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so to me, if he doesn't take the camera here, I think that gives the fact that he's just trying to, he's sending a message is more than likely than him trying to conceal something. What do you think?
Could be. I mean, could be. The thing that throws me off too is that I I've also thought that maybe he was surprised by the camera being there because Nancy had um posted something I think in November about looking for Nest cameras, Ring cameras. So I've also wondered that too. If he was surprised by that camera, if that camera is new, and he just did not count on that camera to be there.
Well, I mean, let's just say that'd be the case, that he
Mm-hmm.
walked up and the camera is not there. That's new. That would probably give him more of a motivation to destroy it immediately, right?
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, if this image here is accurate, and it's wrong way. If this image is after that, and it's him coming back to it, and then he didn't destroy it right away.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would
Yeah.
have, he destroyed. Where is it at? He destroyed that. I'm assuming he destroyed it right away.
That's right outside the porch, right? Or the right up in the back.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the blue door.
The blue door. Yeah. Okay.
But hey, let's bring up your footage. I want to look at that real quick because I want to see this patio area here,
Okay.
and let's pull that up. Oh, you got it ready already. Well, just look at that. See, this is exactly what I wanted to see right here, right away. The first thing that I notice is the fence. One, I would have. So right, if you want to pause it real quick. So that south end of the fence, somebody could easily climb in and out of that. There's no brush, there's no anything. So you have a place where somebody can jump the fence. I wanted to see if this was a brick fence like this, or if this was like a wooden fence. How tall would you say this fence is there?
Not tall, not tall at all. I mean, probably chest high. Not tall at all. Yeah, not tall at all.
See, I think there's a good possibility of that. I don't think he entered in here. But I wonder if he got into her house, secured her. Maybe the plan was to take her out the back, but he couldn't. So he locked her into the bedroom somehow so that she couldn't leave. And then, knew that he was going to have to change his plans. And
there's like residue right here too.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's also off to the side.
Yeah, maybe change plans like you were saying. Yeah.
He changed plans and had to go and jump the fence to go to the front to go get that. Remember that there's a camera up there that he was manipulating.
There's also another entrance back here. I'll bring that up in a minute, but there's also another entrance. But go ahead.
And it's not too crazy to get there. Like it's not like you're going to run into a bunch of like a brush and stuff. It looks like somebody could easily walk there around the house.
Yeah, see how close it is to the road?
Yeah.
There's like a wash here too. There's another wash right here that goes all the way to the road too. That was another point that one of the searchers out there pointed out. She was like, look, there's like an entry point here. That could be another way in to her bed, and it goes straight to her bedroom.
Yeah. I wanted to see what the outside of the area looked like too. See if there was like a lot of obstruction, because it'd be, if there was like a bunch of trees right here that blocked them, like the path, then at night you're like, man, even though he has a light, it's super dark out there. But that doesn't look too crazy to navigate. Did you see any footprints out there?
No, I mean, this was like way after it happened. So,
and this camera to the left on the wall there, that one, that was, you said that looked new. That didn't look like it was possibly new, not something that had been there.
Yeah, it looks new. I'm almost sure that it's a new one, because they did come out and bring out installed new cameras.
Yes, sir. Real quick, I want to say thank you to Julie for being the newest member, coming in with 199, saying let's go DT and Mark. Can opener coming in with their 10-month membership. Melissa Wildcard says, I love Mark the Shark. And then Julie comes in saying, let's go. Remember to hit the like. You love Mark. Go for it, guys. Please, please. I'd appreciate that as well. You guys are
Yeah,
amazing.
see here. Thank you guys. Yeah, see here's that gate I was talking about. There's another entry point, exit point right here. Right by the pool area, and then it goes back over here. There's that other fence on this up here area. There's her bedroom. There's a bedroom right here. And then there's some brush right here, trees, and then that wash, the wall. See it's not that tall. You see how you kind of see it better.
That's a short wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody could easily jump that.
Yeah, there's that wash right there.
Yeah. And see how these people like if these folks right here to the left at the top of the screen, there's a house there. If their cameras had some issues that night, he's not that far away. I mean, you're about the distance you would be if you're in a car to the front of a house. And so if he was able to manipulate those neighbors by walking around there, if he had a jammer, I'm not necessarily saying he did, but if he did, then I'm pretty sure if he was driving around with one, it may have the same impact. He just probably had to drive somewhat slow. Yeah, but you see how like that becomes kind of, I mean, I would, like if somebody tried to say that, that this person navigated through here, on the back end, I'd have trouble believing that. But getting to the side here or to where Nancy's bedroom is, I think that's 100% feasible.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm almost convinced this guy just walked up from the road. Just the way that he looked like he was all cleaned up.
Yeah.
And he, because there is a lot of brush, there's a lot of places where you can get caught up in that with your clothes, and his clothes and his backpack, it looked fine. And the more I see it, the more I'm thinking, man, this guy just walked straight up to the porch and around.
Let me. Do you have the driveway? And
yeah.
And the driveway to the front door. Let's see that.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just find it. Yeah, you were saying like it's different, right? When you're out there.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. I've had my opinion about a lot of things change when you go out there. I never got a chance to go out to the the house in Moscow, Idaho, but I had a lot of people that went out there, and they told me that what the first thing that they noticed when they walked out there was how small everything is and how compact and close everything is. And I was like, that getting those pictures and seeing people in them for a reference, because it's one thing to see a picture with nothing there in front of it, and then to see certain angles and people standing there, you can get a reference of size, and that helps out a lot.
You wanted to watch the
You see
front?
Yeah, he comes from, in my opinion, when he's walking up, I'm gonna pull it up on mine real quick so I could just watch it on this end. Okay, all right. I noticed something. He's stepping. All right, let's Yep. I think I figured something out. All right, so
All right.
I'm gonna pull this off real quick, and I'm gonna pull this up here. So right here, his step is along he's actually stepping on the sidewalk's like edge. I don't know. It looks like there's I don't know, like you see where the path to walk in, it kind of looks like there's an edge there. He's stepping on that edge as he's walking up. And so his step prior to this was the dirt, and kind of gaze about how far away from that entry point he is. Let's see how many steps it takes. So it's 1, 2, and then a step up. So he's only 2 steps away from the entry point. Let's pull this back up. And then, so you see how there's that line? I wish I could take a screenshot of that. You know what I'm talking about? Like the edge there of the sidewalk.
Right here.
Yeah, that's where he's stepping on. He's coming from the side of he's coming from that direction.
From this direction, no.
Yeah, he's not coming from the driveway.
From here?
No, he's not coming from there.
He's coming from this
Yeah,
side.
he's coming from there.
Oh.
I knew he parked on the side of the damn house.
Oh, right here?
Yeah, he parked there, and he's walking in front.
Oh.
And if he entered the back door and he left it propped open and his plan was always to come there, and he came in the front of, and he did that, and he walked there like that, that tells me that he definitely there was no means or no reason for him to walk up to the front of the house. He did it because he wanted to be on camera. He wanted it to be seen. He wanted to be seen. That's
the back, yeah. Let me see if I can get a better from that angle that you're talking about. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Let me play this at the same time. Let me see if I see something here. I wish I could screenshot this. No, that's not what I want to do. But yeah, his step here is right on the edge. This is him stepping from the dirt onto that sidewalk. Interesting. That is wild.
Let me see.
Was there a broken sprinkler head?
Yeah, there was word of a broken sprinkler head up front.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this tells us a couple of things, right? Well, at least tells me a couple of things. If that initial approach, if this is him, this is the first time he's walking up, right? Then he didn't park in the driveway. He didn't park up front. He parked on the side of the house. You would not be making this approach if you parked just off to the side here. If you parked out on the street and you walked up the driveway and came this direction, there's no way. All right, I see that, Deb. I'm gonna DB. I'm gonna check it out real quick. But there is absolutely no way in my mind. Okay. Oh yeah. Interesting. All right. JLR actually posted it. Here it is. Let me get that real quick. Send that here. All right, I'm going to pull that up here in a second. Now, if I was law enforcement, I wouldn't have had a gardener out there messing with it. I would have picked up the damn. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, these guys are going to be they're going to freaking give me a.
All right, there's that video. There's that video right there. It's going to be a better view of the that area you were talking about. There we go. It's just hovering over. And then it's going to dip down. There we go.
See right there, he's barely stepping, and I wonder if he was stepping on these. No, that's way too far.
That's way too far, huh? Is it though?
Yeah, because he only took 2 steps.
Can I see that video again? That you're saying the 2 steps?
Yeah.
Please.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
So this is him stepping right on the edge. And I think I can even see the little circle thing way back here. I wish I could zoom in more. Oh man, there's a little zoom in thing, but it didn't work. And so that's one step. That's 1, 2, and then step up. So his first step onto the sidewalk, and then there, I mean, if you want to count that first step being 1, then that's 2, 3, and then step up.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, if he's right here, I mean, 1, 2, that's really far, in my opinion. I would assume that he's probably right
You
there.
think in this area, right here in this area?
Yeah, I think that's right around there. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe a little bit closer to the step, but like in between, like a little bit further down, right there. I think that's
Yeah.
where he's coming from.
So just coming from the side, right?
Yeah, I think he's coming from the side.
Right there, look.
Which again tells me that he parked on the side of the house, which tells me if his whole plan was to go out the front and the back, he had no business going to the front camera. And then if the blood trail goes, if the blood trail goes all the way down, that obviously means that he came back around to go and take the camera off, because now he has a change of plans, and he's gonna have to exit this way. But if the blood, because I had seen what looked like blood splatter, like Crime Scene Collective had sent me a picture of where some of the blood was, and it was all the way down to the driveway. So I think there was a change of plans.
Did she take those pictures when she was out there, or was it from somebody else?
I think she got it from somebody else. I think it was like possibly media sourced.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so, and obviously the blood is clean and the mat is clean. I don't know why. Well, not necessarily. I still see a bunch of
there's still
plant residue.
Yeah, there's that plant. There's the infamous plant right here.
Yeah.
Right there. And so I turned the drone around. I showed this on the last show.
You see how this is positive? There's a border. That was the word I was looking for. There's
this
a border.
Right here? Oh.
Yeah, there's that little border. And I can see that border. And when he steps on it, it looks like he's about maybe a little bit closer to that circle, that step up there, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Right about right there is right about where he steps onto onto that border for the first time.
Yeah, it does look like he's coming from this side, right? The left side, and then from that other picture, it looks like he's coming from the right side.
Yeah, and he's definitely not coming straight up. So he's not, like, if he was walking through the driveway, he would have came this way. It would have been a different approach. There's no way. The only way, and the only reason he's coming from that angle, and that other view you have is pretty amazing. Rewind it a little bit more. Keep going. Probably about right around there. I think that's definitely the path that he took around that direction. And if he came in that direction, he had to park on the side of the house in the back. There's just absolutely no other reason to do that.
That's wild, man.
The things you pick up, and then possibly more evidence of this is there was a broken deal out here.
The gardener is finally
that's on the left side.
The broken sprinkler at Nancy Guthrie's home. This thing has been shooting up for weeks now. JLR investigates, covering the Nancy Guthrie.
And so if he was moving back and forth through here, I could definitely see this guy, kicking something by accident. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Breaking the sprinkler right here. Yep. Wow.
So
I have a better shot right here if you want to.
Yeah. And I'll answer this one real quick. So this was Cool Whip says, if he wanted to be seen on camera, why take the camera though? Well, I believe that that there was a change of plans. I think he was going to take her out of the back. I think he was parked up in the side, and I think that when the plans changed, he needed to take the camera at that point, which is why I think that the other footage of him without the backpack and the gun is him coming back to take the camera. I don't necessarily. I think if things would have gone down in the manner that he was hoping, that he could get her out of the back of the house, then I think that he most likely is leaving the camera there. Oh man, you see, this is even more evident that the path that he has to take. Wow.
Right there. And you said right there, look, he can hide that vehicle with that brush right here too.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see that vehicle at all, especially at night. There's just no way. I mean, if you parked right here, like you're saying, I mean, that'd be a good spot. Maybe reversed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there's no point in going to the front. There's 0 point. Now, this tells me that he was in that house a lot longer than we're saying, what we're thinking. Because if his initial plan wasn't to take the camera and it was because of a change of plans, that means he would have made entry, assessed the situation, had to have, controlled Nancy, assessed the situation, made an attempt to get her, out of the bed and, out of the back, and then realized that that was going to be that wasn't going to work. Change the plan, come up with a plan, think about it think about it to remember. Because remember, this is a change of plans. In a change of plan situation, that's when a lot of mistakes are made, right? A lot of a lot of things that are happening that you weren't planning, a lot of things that you didn't think of. But this guy thought enough to go back and get the camera up front, right? And so I would say he's probably in the house an extra 20 to 30 minutes, dude, on top of the 40 minutes that he was there, which leads me to believe that there may be some sort of cleanup. What do you think?
Oh, for those 40 minutes, yeah, for a cleanup, yeah, that could be it too. That could be it too. 40 minutes, yeah, that whole 40 minutes, right? Because if it is a robbery or if it is anything like that, you want to get in and out. You don't want to be there long.
Well, yeah, you don't. But like Brian Enton is claiming that his sources are saying that it was immaculate inside, very clean.
Yeah, you see that video where Nancy is doing her bed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she seems like somebody that would have everything in order.
Well, I mean, I would assume that there would have been some sort of maybe struggle. If if the reason why the plans changed from getting her out of the back of the house was because of a mobility issue, then I feel like we would see evidence of that. She Nancy, I don't know if you've ever tried to carry somebody or maneuver somebody. One, if they're just weight, right? If they're just weight, that's one thing. Also, two, if they're struggling with you, even if it's a small amount of struggle, that's a lot of force and things. I would assume there would be signs of it, things knocked over, scratching on the wall, kick marks on the ground.
So you're saying you think maybe that's what it was, the 40 minutes for him to clean up whatever mess he had made, kind of tidy up a little bit?
I think there's a possibility of it. I know some people might say, why didn't he clean up the blood? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the reason, I don't know. I don't want to give any explanations or anything, but maybe the reason why they didn't take the blood and stuff is because it was contaminated. But I don't think that's just an excuse that doesn't make any sense either. I was thinking maybe they tried to test, but they did test it and it came back to Nancy's. So that's not the case.
Yeah, could be right. Came back to Nancy's. Here's another video. It shows you a better understanding of how tall that wall is for that from Nancy's bedroom.
Okay.
Well, let me share. Hold on. screen share. There we go. This is when the DA was out there.
Yeah, it's totally jumpable. That's not even difficult.
And you'll see him reach over too on this gate as they do on the other gates too. To reach over and just open the gate.
Yeah.
So they were talking for a while here. I was trying to like read their lips. But they were pointing at these directions, and it's just it. I mean, obviously, we're not able to, right? We're not privy, or we wouldn't. It's just there's no way, right, to be able to have audio on them. But it would be interesting to know what he's saying, like the FBI agent, the DA, what they're saying about the entry points, exit points, what they're pointing at. You know, what's this guy saying to them about it?
He's pointing kind of far.
Yeah.
He's not pointing at anything close.
Mm.
So
he's like, let's
maybe
go.
The neighbor.
The neighbor.
Maybe they're referring to. I don't know, man. Is there a neighbor's house that direction? I'm assuming so.
Yeah, there is that one that we just saw from the other drone footage. Yeah, see, it's right there.
But why would they be going back there? Why would they go there?
Right, that's what I was like. What? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why are they taking that path? Remember, watch what they do, not what they say.
And then you'll see a little bit. I was trying to see where they were, and you'll see like other drone that were out there. I mean, there was like 6 drones out there.
I know. I remember seeing footage of these people walking in the grass that was running around the internet. I didn't know it was from you. That's
yeah, you
cool.
see that? Yeah, look at that. I'm gonna zoom in because then I find that that's where they were. I think I zoom in, but if not, you can kind of get an idea. See right there. See, you get an idea of how it's like chest high.
Yeah. You know, I think what they're trying, so that might be what they're pointing at, is just that direction way back there. Now, you know, you may have been catching them discussing something that they didn't want the people in the front to see. Watch, if you rewind a little bit, there's a lot of people in the front yard. And so they probably don't want any of those folks seeing what they're talking about. So they may be referring it back here and using the house as a shield from everybody watching.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And they may be trying to just point out something here, but I think it only makes sense now. They didn't appear to be talking about that gate. They appear to be, you know, pointing over it and, in a different direction. And I thought maybe there was a neighbor's house, but I think they're actually talking about Nancy's bedroom. I think that they might be trying to figure out why he was coming from this direction too. As a, one of many things, but that's the first thing that kind of sticks out, is that, if there's more to that footage and it shows that he's coming from that area, they might be trying to figure out, a couple of different things, especially if that's also the second thing that happened. You know what I mean? Oh man, go back just a little bit.
He's pointing at the brush area. There we go.
See that path? That's the path that guy took.
Right here.
He may have gone around. Yeah, no, I think he went that way. I was gonna say maybe that way, but it's either that. Yeah, it's one of those two ways. He definitely was not coming from further this way.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot you can learn from just being there, man, and seeing some stuff.
Mm-hmm. See, and he does point down there too from that left side.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered what that was. He like pointed it. So maybe there is more footage.
Well, you know what I noticed?
Mm-hmm.
Look at all those rocks that are grabbable.
Yeah.
Why not grab, if he was trying to destroy the camera at that moment when he's doing the things with the flowers, why not just grab a rock, one of those rocks? And, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're right there. He's looking in the same direction. that tells me that that wasn't the intention of the flowers. That the flowers weren't intended to remove the camera. And that also tells me that he most likely didn't remove the camera at that time. He came back and took it off, dude. He came back and took it off.
Man, yeah, this case is wild, man. This case is just. I hope there is resolution for that, and I hope we do find some. They do come out with more footage, maybe to keep it out in the public. But if not, then I understand, right? Because they need to keep it close to the vest. But I mean, if he is coming from the left side, and yeah, there are so many rocks that he could smash that freaking camera. And you're probably right. You might be right. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be seen for terror, and it did terrorize the community, and it did terrorize the family. It really did.
Yeah. Man, I see it in a live chat. Apparently, there was a shooting, and President Trump and First Lady Trump were rushed out of the White House Correspondents Association dinner.
Wow.
Gunshots were heard inside the Washington Hilton Hotel, where the event was taking place.
Holy shit!
About 25 minutes ago. I think he's okay, but I think it's crazy.
Damn. Yeah, a lot of rocks here. A lot of rocks. Yeah, yeah, you're right. He is pointing far.
And so, I just got a message from Steve, the CSI, criminal investigator, and he's telling me that he may have found something very disturbing and interesting about the blood pattern.
Oh,
and
wow.
So he was going to share it to me. I was like, yeah, you can share it to me, but I'm not going to bring it on. We're going to bring it on the next time you and I are together, and I'm going to have Steve on so that way we can break it down together.
Sweet.
Yeah. It sounds like everybody's okay in the whole shooting thing from what I read and see online. Crazy stuff, guys. Man, crazy world we live in. But what do you think, Mark? Do you think when do you? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm already been kind of concerned about the case. If somebody would have told me, "Hey, Daniel, what day do you start to get worried?" And I'm like, yeah, probably day 3. But there's not an arrest.
Day 3.
They call it the first 48 for a reason.
For a reason, yeah.
And so, so usually, they probably see it took law enforcement 7 weeks to capture Brian Koberger. So I'd say 12 weeks. I don't know if we're there yet, but we're getting pretty close. It's 3 months. So February, March, April. So we're just shy of that moment.
I hope so. And that's the thing too. It's I'm always optimistic with these cases. I'm hoping that law enforcement has more evidence. They have more in the background. They're working their leads. And I just really hope that this new DNA technology can untangle the DNA, this hair, and it'll. I'm hoping it brings a new fresh lead to this case, because it's just unfathomable that somebody could do this to an 84-year-old woman and get away with it.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I don't think this guy is, I think he's going to get caught. Now, if it was completely up to the Pima County Sheriff's Department, my confidence wouldn't be as high. But, I have some faith that the FBI in this particular matter, I'm not going to say that my faith in the FBI is high in every matter. There's quite a few things that I concerned about throughout the years when it's come to the FBI and stuff that's come out, but that's here nor there. But when it comes to like investigating these type of crimes and things like that, I got a lot of faith in their criminal investigations and of this type of manner and what their labs can do, etc. And so, yeah, yeah, a lot of people are coming in with the stuff that, and I know some folks said to check my email. I'm checking it. My email is drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. I'm not sure if you sent something there or not. I'm not seeing anything. But yeah, Mark, when would you start to get nervous about this? Oh, you're on mute, brother. Oh, maybe you stepped out. You're still on mute. Let's see. Porch guy is the one carrying a firearm. Porch guy is the enforcer. That's I guess going under the pretense that there's multiple people, right? Computer issues froze 1 sec. All right, cool, no problem. All righty, understood. The porch guy being an enforcer, being just one person of many. Yeah, to me, I think you got to factor in. Okay, let's break that down. Let's expand on that theory. In the Brian Cooper case, whenever there was a theory or there was evidence or there was something that was brought to light, there was a lot of questions that I wanted to answer: who, what, when, where, and why. Right? 5 questions that we should try to answer in every situation. So, multiple people. Why Nancy? If it's financially motivated, which I would think that if there's more than one person, then there's got to be the financial aspect of it, right? And so, the hardest part of this crime, outside of getting away with it, I mean, is probably the taking Nancy away, getting out of there, and then not getting immediately caught. It's probably your biggest hurdle. And they've accomplished that. They've reached out to the media and they've managed to express, if they are the ransom people, that they've expressed their need for financial gain. I hear you, Mark.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. It froze.
No problem. And so
I was just saying that, yeah, it concerns me now that the case is dragging along this much, but that DNA, that the hair is promising. That's all I said.
Got you. And so we had a question about, not a question, but a comment about multiple people and one person being the enforcer. And I was just kind of breaking down the who, what, when, where, and why aspect of a theory. And when it comes to the multiple person aspect, the why is the question, like why so many, and then why stop, right? The hardest part of this abduction for ransom is probably getting Nancy, getting out of there, and immediately getting away with the crime. To have gone away with it for this long period of time, I've already reached out to the media, and not gotten, caught. I would assume there would be multiple attempts, especially if it was financially motivated, even if Nancy's no longer with us. Savannah is, and law enforcement have put out $1.2 million reward. That's not to bring Nancy home alive at this point. Would they love that to be the case? I'm sure they would. But realistically, that's not the case. They want information and they want answers. It's going to lead to bring her back, to celebrate her life, to give her the proper, rest in peace burial and things of that nature. If I'm this person who has already gotten her out of there, gotten away with that crime, and I have some information that I could still accomplish my goal of getting some money. I mean, I don't remember how much it was, but I don't think it was more than $1 million that they were asking. And so, if and again, you don't even have to give right information or be, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't have to follow through. So you can just say, hey, give me X amount of money and I'll tell you where your mom is. I can tell you that I am who I am based off of this, that, and the third. This is what happened that night. This is what occurred. She passed away. I'll give you the information to bring her home. Pay me X amount of money. once you get that money, you can disappear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have to, you know, if your goal is still financial, you still could have fulfilled that. And this person is smart enough to have gotten away with it up to this point. And so I would have assumed, and if they are the persons that contacted the media, they're smart enough to contact and make contact with the family without it getting traced back to them. So why stop?
Why stop? Yeah. I had a similar situation with that with my pops. He had like a ransom call.
Oh,
And they
wow.
said like that my grandpa was being held hostage, and they were extorting him for money, and he believed it. And it's scary. It's scary to feel that that's, you know, they're saying don't hang up, don't call the police, and it's super scary to think that somebody has your family member, and that's why at first I thought maybe the ransom notes were not real, were scammers, people that try to take advantage of the situation because they don't want you to call police. They don't want you to, have contact and with anybody else other than them, and to get money if it is money motivated. And that goes to your point that that's probably what it wasn't. That it wasn't money motivated because they would have taken other avenues, other steps for that, because I have been through similar situation with that, and it is scary, and you don't know what to do because you do believe them. And
Wow,
come
man,
to
I didn't
find
know
out, come to find out he was okay. He was taking a nap. He was okay. I mean, I could laugh about it now, but it's just it was bad last time. It was scary.
Yeah. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is scary, dude. You know, and when you have somebody's motivations when they're going to commit a crime, and if they're willing to go to this extent, I just don't see them just stopping. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see them saying, "All right, never mind. I'm not going to get anything. I'm just going to let this go." You know, if this was like if this was a BTK type of situation, BTK, if he came across some situations, which he had, he left a gun at one of the scenes and had to go back for it. That didn't stop his motivation of wanting to take people's lives in a very sadistic manner. He continued to do it, even though he made mistakes. He learned from them. And he used that so that he could continue to commit those crimes and get away with it. You know what I mean? And in part, I think he wanted to get caught. That whole floppy disk thing. I think he would have known better than that. I think he wanted to get caught. I think he wanted recognition. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, and if this person wants maybe not so much recognition, but wants people to get the right narrative, maybe he does want recognition later. I don't know. He may commit another crime like this, but I think that's why he reached out. If that reached out. I don't think it had to do with money. I think it was trying to correct the narrative.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to that point. Do you think, because I know Nanos was saying that this guy could strike again, do you think he could strike again and the same thing or maybe something different? What do you think about that?
Oh, 100% think he could strike again. This guy did a lot of things, right? He took her, was capable of inflicting possibly an injury, didn't take any medication with her, didn't take anything. And if the ransom note is correct, he told Savannah Guthrie that if, the certain demands weren't met, that he was going to take her life flat out. And so, it takes a certain person to do those type of things. And if the ransom note was for, the ransom letter was mainly just to create a spectacle, to create buzz, to correct the narrative, that says something about the person. He's probably narcissistic, probably a psychopath, sociopath. And, if he did that to feel a certain way to get off on this act again by contacting the media, then he's going to want to get off on the same crime again. He's going to do it again. No doubt in my mind.
Wow.
And you know what? I mean, there's a possibility that this guy may have done this before. We just don't know. You know,
It sure seems like it's not something that like it doesn't seem like this is his first time breaking into somebody's home.
it doesn't. And the thought of him going back out to go get the, you know, the doorbell camera, that doesn't seem like something that just, you know, you remember. You know, again, change of plans. Something happened. There was a situation. This guy stayed calm, cool, collective, stayed there for 40 minutes, possibly went back and cleaned up during that time. Remembered to take the doorbell camera because the change of plans. Now he was going to have to park in front of the house or at least, you know, have her exit. And yet, you know, he remembered that. That seems more of experience than anything else.
100%, I believe that. Yep, experience. Yep.
Now, you know, maybe perhaps this is the first time he's taken somebody or done something to someone. I mean, there's a lot of crimes and cases out there that go unsolved. And if you have some random guy that's committing them, and if he's doing it in different areas or in a large city like Tucson, you know, if he's not leaving a lot of evidence behind, and you know, some of these departments don't talk to each other and things of that nature. And if he had a jammer and he's been utilizing that before, and this is the first time he's decided he wants to show his face, then I mean, I don't know, man. He may have done it before.
So aren't there like with certain perps, like doesn't the crime escalate? Like if they're breaking in and then it starts to escalate. I'm wondering if this is something like that.
It could be. I mean, you know, we go back. Every case does, but to me, there's just, and again, we don't know all the information. So if we find out that there was just a treasure trove of mistakes that were left behind, then I'll probably be more subject to believe that this may have been the first time and this was an escalation to that point. But I mean, you know, if you go to like the Brian Koberger case and you watch the video of him driving around at 4:00 after the DoorDash driver leaves, and I think there's some new evidence that's come out here recently that Xana had actually messaged the DoorDasher saying, are you having trouble finding the place? And I had said, I felt based on the location of the house, the location of the street name, it facing Queen, but being called King Road, but facing Queen, that could be confusing to a DoorDasher. Maybe they had a light on or something. What appears that there was some confusion with the DoorDasher, and Xana was aware of it and was reaching out to her. And so the moment that the DoorDasher leaves, I'm assuming that the light or whatever indicator that she may have had on for the DoorDasher turns off. You know, for Brian Koberger, he doesn't know that. He's just driving by and seeing a light and then seeing it off. So his assumption is that, you know, they probably just went to sleep at that point. Now it's go time for him. You know, you go back and you watch it. He does this weird thing. So up until this point, he had circled around the apartment complex next to the victim's house and then drove in front of the house and left. When the DoorDasher situation has resolved and left, he then goes and parks in front of 507 Queen Street, stays there for about approximately 11 seconds, reverses, and then goes back the direction that he came. When he does that, he then attempts to either park or make a 3-point turn in front of the house. Now, the reason they can see that is because the lights from the headlights are moving in weird maneuver, but he fails to do so. He's already making mistakes, and he hasn't even gotten out of his car. You know, he can't even park right. He then goes and he turns around, comes back around. And then as he's driving around the apartment complex, you hear a horn go off. To me, I think that's him grabbing his bag, getting ready, and he accidentally hits the horn on his wheel. He's making even more mistakes. He hasn't even gone in there, and he leaves the knife sheath behind. To me, that was, all examples of somebody who was not very experienced. This guy went back and took the doorbell camera off after the fact, remembering that he's going to have to exit there. I don't know, man. And this guy he was collective. In my opinion, I'm assuming he's collective because there's not a lot of DNA or anything left behind. And if he was there longer than 40 minutes, which I'm strongly suspecting that he was, you know, that should say a lot about this guy. And it just kind of screams experience to me.
makes it even more scary, right? That he is at that point more experienced and more cunning, I guess, and he hasn't been caught. I mean, that's I don't know, man. I mean, I'm optimistic, but yeah, if I don't know, I feel like there is just one more piece, I think, and then I think we'll get this dude.
Well, if the piece is DNA and it's like I said,
Mhm.
if it's the DNA aspect and they get an IgG going and that's what they're waiting on, I'll say it right now. The suspect in this case is going to be somebody that's even new to law enforcement because there's no point of doing an IgG on somebody you have an idea of being the suspect. Just go get their DNA. Whether you go get a warrant for it or whether you go pull their trash, you call them in, have them drink something out of a cup and then take it from them afterwards. If you have the IgG, you have an SRT profile. If you have an SRT profile, then you have the profile to match somebody with. And if they have the DNA of the suspect, it would not be very difficult to match that with your suspect if that suspect is the right person. And so,
And to that, if you are matching that right and eliminating people from that, if this is new evidence that is being taken and it hasn't been it hasn't come out yet, would we still rule out those people, or do we still need to wait for this DNA to say, okay, we can now officially release these people, clear them?
well, I think it depends, right? So, how strong is the opinion of law enforcement that it is in fact the abductor's DNA? Right? Because I mean, just because somebody's DNA is in somebody's house doesn't mean that they're responsible for something. You know, um, is it on an item that the killer brought in, like the knife sheath, and it's single source, and it's obviously that the only way that it could have gotten on there was that the person physically touched it, then you probably can. If it's mixed and it's mixed with something else and it's in a common area like a doorknob where a lot of people touch, Nancy could have shook in the hand of somebody and then touched her doorknob and that's how it got there. That's a little bit more questionable.
Mm.
So, if it's that type of DNA, then I don't think you can rule anybody out. But if you're strongly confident that it belongs to the abductor, then I mean, you can never completely rule anybody out, right? Because I mean, in the world of percentages, there's nothing that's 100% absolute. And so, but you can probably say pretty confidently, without a shadow of a doubt, that you can clear some people with it. But it depends on how confident you are that the DNA that you have is the suspects.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. If we don't know, if it hasn't come out yet, this strand of hair of whose it is, how can we rule people out if that one hasn't been?
Well,
Uh, mhm.
what you can do is you can create a profile that you can match up to people. And so what this probably means is that this person hasn't been caught, hasn't committed a crime, and isn't in CODIS if they have DNA. So what happens is you'll get a profile, right? You got an STR profile, you'll submit it into CODIS and see if there's a match. If there's not a match, you start to try to um, compare that with known suspects or known persons of interest that you have available to get their DNA. Once there's no match there, that's when you start doing the IgG. And if you're doing the IgG and a person of interest comes up, you can still go and get their DNA and then take that DNA and compare it to the sample that you have. You don't necessarily, you have to have an STR profile to start the IgG. So you have to have a profile that you can compare something to. And so if they've gotten to that part where they've created an STR profile, then, like, for instance, let's just say, the person that committed this crime is somebody named John Doe. If John Doe became suspect number one tomorrow, for whatever reason, let's just say John Doe's brother calls in a tip to the FBI. They're like, all right, we're going to go and, something matches up. We're going to go check this out. They go and they see him smoking a cigarette. He throws a cigarette out. They don't have anything other than the fact that somebody said it was his, that it possibly could be him. He matches height and weight. Let's just go pick up that cigarette butt. There's nothing illegal about that. They can then go and get the DNA off that cigarette butt and then test it directly to the STR profile. And if they got a match, they got them. They don't have to wait for the IgG at that point. At that point, that's it. They're done. The IgG people would say, all right, case, our job is done. There's nothing more for us to do. They've already located a person and then close shop on that one and move on to the next case. And so if they found anybody that was a person of interest and they truly do have DNA that they strongly suspect is the suspects, it'd be very easy to determine whether or not they're the suspect or not.
Okay, I got you. Now that makes sense. So the hair is going to be to go even further into the wow.
Yeah, and I think that if it is, if there's hair and it is the suspects, yeah, we're going to find out that this is somebody that we've never heard of. And I'll be honest with you, it's somebody that law enforcement hasn't heard of until that name came back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Because of the DNA is ruling people out already that are around the case.
Correct.
Right now. Okay.
Yeah, that and like I said, there's no point in doing an IgG if this was the Brian Koberger case and they sent out the DNA to the lab, and during that time, one of his students called in and said, hey, this guy is pretty crazy, blah, 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 blah. Go check him out. And they go and get the DNA and they do a comparison to it. They're not going to wait for the IgG to finish. There's no point in it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to go and arrest him. And, they're going to build a case and then go arrest him. But yeah, they don't need the IgG is irrelevant at that point.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I guess the pro burgers were having a problem with, is because
pro burgers.
Yeah, they were having a problem with the fact that law enforcement was saying the IgG is irrelevant. And the reason why they were saying that the IgG is irrelevant is because they got DNA from his dad's trash, and you can do that. And so it doesn't matter what the IgG said; his DNA matched. They were able to match it to the son of the profile that they found I think it was like on a Q-tip, that they found DNA that belonged to Michael Koberger, Brian Koberger's dad, and it came back as the father of the person that left the sample on the knife sheath, and that gave them the warrant to swab him. And when they swabbed him, it came back as 100% match. About 1 in 5 octillion times likelihood of it being his versus somebody else's.
That whole technology is so amazing. I mean, I've said it myself. I'm like, let's just have everybody's DNA on a database.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just have everybody's on it. And I know that sounds controversial, but I mean, if we did that, I think we could match up stuff like this easily.
Oh yeah. And like I said, once they get this guy's name and they got the right suspect, and if they do have DNA and they can match it, they're going to arrest the guy. They're going to get warrants for his phone. They're going to get warrants for his locations. Right now, back when Brian Koberger committed his crime for AT&T, they only held advanced timing records for 7 days. Now it's like 13 months or something like that. So as long as they get this guy within that time frame, and I think most of them are over a year also, they're going to be able to look at his advanced timing records and know where he was, when he turned off his phone, if he turned off his phones to go do these surveillances or whatever the case he may have done. All those things are going to come into play. There's going to be a pattern. There's going to be stuff that sticks out that's not of the ordinary. And I think they'll catch this guy. But, they got to get his name first. I think right now they have very little. But once they got his name and once they got information, just his name, and they can pull up, some warrants, I think it's going to be pretty solid.
Damn, man, I can't wait for that. And it does sound like that when the ball starts to get rolling, like you're saying, the warrants and everything that goes into it. I think it'll start to snowball. And I'm really hoping that this case gets resolved. I mean, we were all hoping for an arrest any day once it happened. And the longer it goes, the more you feel discouraged. But then new evidence comes out or new information comes out, and it kind of revamps the case. So this is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they come out with a little bit more information so it keeps it in the public eye, and I really hope they get this guy. If it is one person or multiple people or people that were doing the ransom notes, I mean, I just hope they get everybody involved with this case.
I 100% agree, man. I 100% agree. And so, well, we've gone over the 2-hour mark. It's been pretty good, but I don't want to take you too much. Yeah, with 2 hours and 10. Anything you wanna plug that you got coming up? Anything you're going to be doing here next?
Covering the David Celeste Rivas case. I was in courtroom the last 2 times he was there. So I'll be going May 1st to downtown Los Angeles courtroom to cover the David and Celeste Rivas case. So that's what I got going on right now.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts about that case. We should do another one on that one.
We should definitely do another one of that one for sure.
Heck yeah, man. We'll do that. And then for me, I'm going to get Steve on. He sent me something that I think explains what we're seeing on the ground, guys. The shoe print. And I don't think it's a shoe print. And we'll leave it at that. I think he found out something, and it's pretty disturbing.
And when you'll have him on?
I'm waiting, but when I do, I'm gonna try to get that with yourself, myself, and him on, so that we can break it down.
Man, that'd be amazing.
Yes, sir. We'll do it, man. Make sure you like, subscribe. If you're watching on my show, go to Mark's show. His channel is linked in the title. Go check him out, subscribe, and like. If you're on Mark's channel, I'd appreciate it if you come to the Drunk Turkey Show and get a glimpse of what I have to offer. I get it. My show doesn't sound like a true crime show. It wasn't supposed to be.
No, it really is. And I always redirect people to your law enforcement background. I'm like, hey, you guys want to go check out, his perspective? Go check him out. He's great. If you guys want to see me boots on the ground being there, in the area, come check me out. So I always try to send people to certain people that I really like, and I really do enjoy your content, man. You did great, and I've seen you grow too, and it's phenomenal, man. What you've done with your channel, it's amazing.
I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you so much. And for Mary Melbourne, I'm not seeing an email coming in. The last 2 emails I have are from the New York Times talking about, suspect detained. Let me check my spam. Maybe it came in spam real quick. I got some spam stuff. It did come in spam. All right, I got it. Let's see. Okay. All right, I read that one. All right, Meredith, I'll respond to you afterwards. I'm seeing this now, but yeah, I'll respond afterwards. Okay. Well, guys, you guys have a great night. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'll see you guys next time. Mark, don't go anywhere. I got a couple things I wanted to share with you. But for everybody else, peace out, y'all.